Signing out, but Dr. Preston, the question was raised regarding QBE and the earning formula, and I asked Dr. Preston, who's done yeoman's work, outstanding work. This man has literally generated, along with the work supported by Dr. Thompson and Dr. Bell and planning, has generated literally tens of millions of dollars, additional dollars, for the DeKalb County School District. Y'all ought to give him a hand. I mean, he has just done that. He's been at the point now. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good evening. Chairman Johnson, Mr. McMahon, members of the board, Superintendent Thurman. Today I would like to present you with a QBE earning analysis of DeKalb County Schools for the FY 2008 to the FY 2016. QBE stands for Quality-Based Education, which is the funding that all school districts receive from the state of Georgia. This brief presentation will analyze the part of QBE designated as earned funding for the direct instruction only. Funding for DCSD direct instruction is directly driven by enrollment, FTE reporting, and the base amount of money received for each FTE student, which is determined by the Georgia General Assembly. To give clarity to this presentation, I would like to provide some key terms before moving forward. FTE. FTE is full-time equivalent. The Quality-Based Education Act requires local school systems to report student enrollment in terms of full-time equivalent students. A student is calculated within FTE if the following requirements are met. A student is enrolled in 6 segments courses within the school day. A student is not underage or overage. Students who are present for at least one of the 10 prior days prior to the FTE count day. FTE reporting. FTE reporting refers to the state funding mechanism based on the student enrollment in the educational services local school systems provide. Projected initial allotment. The projected initial allotment is the allotment sheet sent to local school systems each spring, which informs local systems personnel of the quality-based education funding that they will have for the operation of their schools for the following year. The initial QBE allotment sheet is a projection. However, the October FTE reporting cycle reports what the system actually earns. The state will then take what is earned and generate what is called the midterm QBE allotment sheet to adjust funding accordingly. Midterm adjustment. The midterm adjustment, as I mentioned, is the allotment sheet sent to the local school system that reflects the recalculation of the total amount of QBE earnings for the current fiscal year. In analyzing the direct instructional allotment portion of QBE earned for DCSD, the FY 2008 through FY 2011 midterm adjustment did not meet the FY 2008 through FY 2011 initial allotment. Starting in FY 2012 through FY 2015, the midterm adjustment exceeded the projected initial allotment, producing additional revenue during those fiscal years.
So what does that mean, Dr. Preston? Let's go back one slide. What conclusions do you draw?
The conclusions there through FY 2008 to FY 2011 that DeKalb County School District did not earn the projected allotments, which means this: there were funds left out on the table that could have been earned in DeKalb County School District. However, in 2012 till now, DeKalb County has exceeded the initial projected allotment, which means once they project the allotment, if you as a district recoup additional allotments, you will receive what's called a midterm adjustment. That midterm adjustment will start in March, April, May, and June as you receive those payments, and that's where you'll see the additional revenues.
In other words, even though you may be eligible,
yes,
you still have to earn it before you receive it.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
consequently, for whatever reasons, which you'll get into, we failed to earn what was rightfully ours.
In FY 2008
8 through
to
FY
2011.
2011.
That is correct. Many factors such as changes in actual student enrollment, FTE enrollment, and or base funding may have contributed to the lost revenue from FY 2008 to FY 2011 as shown in the illustration. However, through better communication from FY 2012 to FY 2015, better fiscal management, and leadership district-wide, DCSD has been on a steady incline with regard to QBE funding, regardless of those factors, regardless if the enrollment went up or down, regardless if the base FTE funding went up or down, DCSD has been able to recoup and exceed the initial allotment. In this illustration, the data from the percent change of property taxes collected is added. The blue line graph that represents the percent change of property taxes collected shows that in FY 2011 to FY 2012, there was a decrease of 14%, and from FY 2012 to FY 2013, there was a decrease by 4%, as you will see, as duly noted, by the red arrows depicting in 2011 and 2012, and also 2012 to 2013. However, with the property taxes collected decreasing in FY 2013, the gray line graph representing QBE funding for the district increased 15%, which is critical. Because if you're decreasing in property taxes, however, increasing in QBE funding, that still holds true and make sure that you are funding your teachers and lowering class size as you go through that fiscal year. Also, please note that the property taxes collected beyond FY 2012 has not recovered to its highest level of 2009. However, DCSD QBE funding for direct instruction has surpassed its level for FY 2009. In summary, through better communication, fiscal management, and leadership, district-wide, DCSD has been on a steady incline with regard to QBE funding. DCSD will continue to work to ensure that QBE funding is maximized to provide continued support to the instructional classrooms that will help produce great student outcomes. Mr. Thurman, this concludes our presentation on QBE earnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Comments or questions by board members? Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Preston, page 3, I think slide 6. Yeah, that one right there. What's the right-hand numbers from 350 million up to 700 million represent?
Well, Mark, that represents the tax base. The tax base collected, as you'll see, it started out in 2008 with a little bit above 370 million, and you'll see each year how that represents going forward.
And then the left-hand side?
I couldn't see where you were. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm looking at it a different way than you are. On the left, on my left-hand side, okay? On my left-hand side, that's the DCSD funded state QBE formula for the initial, and the DCSD students funded under state QBE formula after the midterm adjustment. Then on your right-hand side are your property taxes.
Another question would be regarding the, and this is back to slide 4, your initial projected allotment and then midterm actual. These are representative of state funding?
State QBE funding.
Right. So looking at what we actually receive, is it safe to assume that the state does not fully fund, even though the formula is, we calculate it based on this? Our state funding for this year is under $400 million for fiscal 15, even though we show 462.
What you have there is when you have the 462, what happens is you have the initial of 447. That right there is not counting less meals. That is actually what from FTE. Then you have the other column with the less 5 meals that comes out of local.
Got it.
So the 462 adds everything else into it.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Orson?
Thank you. This is really great, helpful. And I think as we go out in the public, because I think it is a little bit complex, and if I'm understanding correctly, some of this allocation is based on changes in what we projected enrollment to be based on, then we do our actual counts. Some of it's maximizing our share under categorical grants, right, under QBE. And I think finding a balance to be able to explain that to the public is probably worthwhile, because I think there's a lot of work that has to go on behind the scenes to make sure that we're properly classifying a student to optimize the amount of money we get under the categorical grants as opposed to just the straight head count. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That's
so,
exactly correct.
The task I would ask, which there is no way I could ever do anything like this, is to figure out a way we can share this with the public in a way that sort of is simplistic, so that people get why there's work. Because I think there's a general notion, hey, we have 100 students, we should get paid for 100 students. And the way the QBE formula is currently set up, it is far more complex than that. And so it really takes somebody with some knowledge and understanding of maximizing our take, particularly under the categorical grants. And so if we can, that's a big task, I understand that, but I think it would behoove us going forward to be able to share that, because as I know the state is looking at reforming the QBE formula for the 18th time, and then they never get around to actually, they talk about it a lot, and they may very well get around to it, but until they do, I mean, this is what we're going to live under, and so the more effectively we can convey it to the public, I think the better they'll understand how the money comes into the system.
Mr. Chair, to
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Orson's point, you're exactly right, and we have been working like Trojans to try to distill this to a more simplified analysis so that board members and others can share it. One of the key points right now, when we've heard it, I think we heard it tonight, when Dr. Bell speaks of the fund balance, the surprise is that what's really driving the fund balance is not rising property taxes or ad valorem taxes, but is quite frankly doing a better job of maximizing our funding through QBE. And it surprised me, and I would think that it would surprise many of our stakeholders, because people assume, number one, that we're horrible managers and that we're just benefiting from fallout from rising property taxes. But as Dr. Preston pointed out, the ad valorem tax revenue is not really rebuilt itself or regenerated itself pre-recession, but through his work and the work of senior staff and principals in the school. I want to acknowledge them. The key players in this is that the principals who do the staffing have to follow suit with the directions, because that is what generates the ultimate revenue or additional revenue for the district.
Well, thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for your very detailed report, and certainly each of your presentations tonight, I hope that we will be able to duplicate them in the future, because that is the only way that we will be able to communicate not only to our stakeholders, but board members and community people throughout.